Call the meeting to order. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, December 15, 2025 meeting of the Westport Select Board. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. We have a bunch of acknowledgements today, but I want to start off with a somber one. I want to acknowledge the passing of George Foster on December 13. George was 82. He passed away on Saturday. He was born in Taunton. He had been a longtime resident of Westport. He was a graduate of Taunton High School and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He was an Eagle Scout. He had a long career in public service, banking, and finance. He retired after 25 years from the town of Westport as the unopposed town treasurer. Prior to serving the town of Westport, he worked for the U.S. Treasury as vice president of Fairhaven Savings Bank and was a Westport elected Diamond RVTHS school committee member. He was also a member of the Nokachoke Lodge. His survivors include his 6 children and a number of family members. We just want to say our condolences to the Foster family as they mourn the passing of George. Anyone have anything about George they want to say? Okay. We have some thank yous to go out, so we want to thank the Highway Department. We had our real snow finally. So you were busy not only yesterday, but before and after the storm too. So thank you very much for the work from the Highway Department. I want to thank the Recreation Commission and a number of town entities, including the Fire Department and the Police Department and the Westport Land Conservation Trust for the tree lighting that we had on December 6th. It was a lovely event. The weather was great for them. So thank you, everyone who made that possible. We also want to, I wasn't there, but Dick mentioned that there was a Council on Aging event where they honored 40 years, the 40-year anniversary of the Friends of the Council on Aging. So you guys want to say anything about that?
Well, as you mentioned, I was there. It was a great event and great people, and we enjoyed ourselves and honored a number of people. And there was a sort of a diorama of the history of the council, not only the council and the Friends, but the building itself when it was turned into the senior center way back when. So it was a great event. Craig was there as well.
It was a great event. I mean, there was over 100 people there.
Yeah.
It was at Rachel's, and of course, then we get a lot of constituent inquiries. Something having nothing to do with the aging, but it was a great event. Place was packed, the front meeting room, so it was a good crowd.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the Friends of the Council on Aging. And I was told that Jim does not want a lot of hoopla about this, but I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this is Jim Hartnett's last meeting as our town administrator. The new town administrator is starting on the 29th, and Jim is going off to retirement. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
You want to give a speech or anything? No. I was told you did not want hoopla, so there's no hoopla, just acknowledgement. Thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Are there any other welcome comments that I missed? Okay. So the first item we have on our agenda is a public hearing. We have a request from Sean Leach, the Beach Committee Chair, to approve an increase in the beach pass fees for a regular beach pass from $50 to $55 and a senior beach pass from $25 to $35. And I understand that Mr. Leach couldn't be here today. So Jim, do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, first of all, the slide has a correction. It's 2024 passes and 2025 passes. I'm aware the Beach Committee did meet and discuss this either earlier this month or last month, and they've recommended Fore Road to go with these increases. We've had a full complement of lifeguards the last 2 years. They stayed most of the season. In the past, they would leave, you'd get the majority of them leave in the beginning of August, middle of August to go to school. But there were some incentives that the Beach Committee came up with, and we've had them there for the majority of the season. So the costs have gone up a little bit for the salaries in that account, and they're looking to increase the fees just to cover that. I think the senior passes would raise about $15,000 additional, and the Regular would be roughly, I think, $12,000. So this would get them up and above what they need to get through the season.
All right, thank you. Anybody from the board have anything on that?
Madam Chair, I've always encouraged on increases, whether it be the harbor or the Council on Aging a couple of weeks ago, that taking more frequent increases on a smaller basis is wise. And this applies here. It's only a $5 increase on the regular pass, and same will tend for the senior beach pass. Both, I think, are very, very fair and competitive, and I'd recommend approval. I'd make a motion to that effect.
Sean,
Okay.
I just have a few questions first. And unfortunately, Sean's not here, so does all the revenue that comes from the beach passes stay for use on the beach? I mean, for the lifeguards, for maintenance, for the vehicles and torps and all that stuff?
It does, so it all goes into the enterprise fund.
Okay.
So anything that's expended out of that enterprise fund has to be approved at town meeting as an expenditure. We do have a, what do you call it?
Like an administrative fee.
Yeah, that goes to the town. I believe it's $15,000 a year, but I'd have to double check on that. And that's to help cover, police when they're down there, highway department work in the parking lot, town collector, town clerk, accountant. And that's pretty consistent with most of our enterprise funds.
Just another question. So you're saying you're going to raise an additional $15,000 from the increase on seniors and then $12,000 additional from the regular passes? Is that correct?
That's based on last year and the year before. It's roughly about that.
So, in my opinion, why would we increase or a greater increase from the 25 to 35 on seniors that are probably on fixed incomes, or, you know, what was the justification on that from the beach committee standpoint? I know you can say the differential between 50 and 35 or 25, but.
I don't know for sure. I think that's the explanation that I would go with, but I wasn't at the meeting.
Because we have a tendency to see a lot of, you know, seniors actually get discounts, whether it's property taxes or various other things. So I just don't know why we would saddle them when they're probably not the ones using the beach to its fullest. Seniors, I would imagine that families with a lot of kids would be, you know, obviously down there and probably having a bigger impact and use the services of lifeguards more. That's just my 2 cents on that. As for the enforcement, and I know through Bill Chase and the police department, they've been gotten a lot better on kind of enforcement, but a constant concern that I hear from people, whether seniors or regulars, is that, you know, there's kind of ways that they game the system, bringing cars in there, leaving them there all day, or not having passes, or, and again, Bill and the police have done a much better job this year, but if you continue to have these increases, I think we need to show the constituents that, you know, they actually have the ability to get to that beach. So with this, my concern lies with, you know, if we're going to charge more, that they still have the ability to use the beach, whether we're talking East Beach or Cherry and Webb or others. So I don't necessarily agree with the increase on the senior side, though.
All right, so we did have a motion to approve the fees, but do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Did you want to make a potential amendment to the motion?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Sean's not here to kind of justify, and it went through the beach committee, so I don't have enough expertise or background to kind of change that motion. I don't know if there's anyone, you know, that would talk, you know, or speak from the public that may help.
We'll get to the public in a minute, just.
But I don't, when I make a motion, I want to make sure that I'm fully educated and understand that I wish there would have been someone here from the beach committee to explain it and explain the vote,
Okay.
process, but.
All right, is there any, we will go to the public, but is there anything else from the board first before we do that? All right, if, this is a public hearing, so if you want to have a comment, you just need to come up to the microphone here and just state your name.
Hi, Karen Goyette, Trip Drive. I'm concerned with the raise on the senior and on the beach passes. First of all, I go to East Beach. There's no porta potty. There's no trash receptacles. We've called the police. I've called the police myself several times because people are there with no passes in the pass parking lot and never come, and nobody's ever come to ticket them to collect some revenue instead of bringing our senior passes cost up. Why don't we try to do some other stuff too? Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Dawn Majewski, Celtic Drive. We also just got hit with the senior center prices going up. So we're paying $20 more because it's $2 more a class. So you add in $20 for that. And again, there's no one, there's no porta potty or anything. East Beach, you get nothing. And we're just, or the nubble. And we're going to raise the price for seniors on that again.
Thank you. Anything else?
Chair, I just have one more question. Jim, this year we had a situation where the 2 weeks prior to the new fiscal year starting, that there was a shortage in the account and their money had to be moved around in order to fund lifeguards. Will that be the similar situation here in 20? Do we have money in that account to pay?
We do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second to set the beach passes as described. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
So we have 3 in favor and 2 opposed. So that passes. Thank you. The next item we have is a request from Michael Burris to appoint Kim Botello and Joseph Inglesby to the Climate Resiliency Committee. So these two were, the Climate Resilience Committee the other day asked to appoint these 2 people to the committee. We don't have any, yeah. Do you want to?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Chris Gonzalez, the highway surveyor, to appoint Craig Kadama, sorry if I did that, to the position of special equipment operator with a December 29th start date. I see you're here. Did you want to say anything, or do you want to just talk to Jim? No, okay. Jim, do you want to tell us about this?
I did speak to the highway surveyor. He was very happy with the interest that Craig had. They had a good interview. He's got a good resume. I'd recommend approval.
And this has been a posted position with funding, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Welcome aboard. We have a request from John Resendes, the Westport Community Television Director, to hire Madden Hawk as a camera operator. I was in the cable advisory meeting last week, I guess it was, and the committee recommended unanimously to appoint Madden Hawk to the camera operator position. I will move that.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Christopher Dunn, the Westport Police Chief, to appoint the following members: Craig Pimentel as Reserve Police Officer and Carol Morgan as a part-time E911 dispatcher. Hello.
Hello. Just on behalf of the chief, I just have a couple letters to read here. As far as Carol, she's here, standing in the back. To help address the need of part-time E911 dispatchers, I respectfully request that the board consider appointing Carol Morgan contingent upon her successful completion of a background check and required training. Ms. Morgan brings experience from fast-paced, high-stress work environments and has expressed a strong willingness to serve our community. She's a resident of Mattapoisett and has 1 adult child. If approved, I propose an effective appointment date of Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. Please note that no additional funding is being requested to fill this position. That's from the chief.
Thank you. You guys want to handle these together or separately?
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll do them together. Go ahead.
Okay. The second one, Craig Pimentel. To help address the need of reserve police officers, I respectfully request, that the board consider appointing Craig Pimentel contingent upon his successful completion of a background check. Officer Pimentel brings more than 30 years of law enforcement experience, retiring from the Dartmouth Police Department. During his tenure, he served as a team commander for the Southeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council SWAT team, a leading firearms instructor, and the use of force instructor. He's a Dartmouth resident, married, with 1 adult child. If approved, I propose an effective appointment date of Thursday, January 1st, 2026. Please note, no additional funding is being requested to fill this position.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Deputy? No?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Anything going on in the police department you want to tell us about?
Right now, no, we had, like you had mentioned, the successful tree lighting. That was a great time. This Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't remember, I gotta look at my calendar. We'll be making the donation to the Women's Shelter. I'd like to thank Select Board Member McGuigan for his donation to that as well. And also SRO Davis will be doing a gift distribution as well. We do that every year. The union helps along with that, as well as at-large members as well, too. So there'll be a lot of gifts being given out for the holiday season coming up.
Great, thank you. I hope you have a very quiet holiday season.
Hope so, yeah. Hopefully New Year's is quiet as it was, or will be, hopefully. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
On the next item, we have a request from Manuel Soares to be appointed to the Agricultural Commission and the Infrastructure Oversight Committee as an at-large member. Can I say anything about that?
Not really, I was on it. I'd like to continue to be on the Infrastructure Oversight Committee, and since retirement, I'm getting a little more involved in my farming stuff, and I'd like to get on that commission.
Yeah, you got it.
I was just saying this, now since I've come semi-retired, I'd like to give a little bit more time back to the community, and that's why I want to get on the Agricultural Commission.
All right, thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair. I would just be wondering, and I think I know the answer to this, but I think the public should know that these appointments have been reviewed by the respective chairs of those committees, and they are supportive.
We sent it to the chairs. I haven't heard back yet from the chairs.
But they're not opposed.
They're not, I have, no, I'm sorry, I have not heard anything opposed from the chairs.
Well, then I would make a motion that Mr. Soares be appointed to both these commissions,
Do we have a second?
committees, I mean, sorry.
Do you want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I am opposed to these appointments for two reasons. One, I find your attendance and your preparation for meetings to be very unreliable. And two, your behavior towards some of the town employees has been less than positive, and I am worried about subjecting the rest of our committees who are volunteers to that type of behavior. So I'm going to be a no on these.
And that's your opinion.
It is.
I'd just like to make a statement that it was beyond my control, and most people will realize in a couple of weeks that it was beyond my control.
Fair
There's a
enough.
thing called innocent until proven guilty.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would just like to point out that one of my reasons for the recommendation is, at least as respects the Oversight Committee, Infrastructure Oversight Committee, I believe Mr. Soares is on that committee previously. And-
was.
And I believe served well. The Agricultural Commission could use another member, and I think Mr. Soares is very conversant with those issues.
I was also, I was also the chair on that committee, the Infrastructure Oversight Committee, and I'm in my second term as a planning board member, which we volunteer our time for. And I'd like to continue that work. The reason I did is because Bob Dahler decided to run for another term, and I'd like to help out the planning board as much as I can on that.
All right, anything else?
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Jim, you said you hadn't received any feedback from either commission. My only concern with that is that normally when we go through the process, the commission, or if we're doing an appointment, we'll hear from the respective committees, and did we reach out to them for opinions on this?
We did, we reached out to both of them.
And there was no response?
I haven't heard back yet, no.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye?
Opposed?
Aye.
So it's 3 opposed and I didn't hear you vote one way or the other. So,
Well, I thought I'd have to abstain from that, but I would vote to
abstaining?
put my name there.
all right, so there's 3 to 2, so that you're not appointed to those committees. 4A, we have a request from Carol Freitas, Veteran Service Officer, to accept a cash donation of $100 for discretionary use.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Dana Stewart, the Recreation Director, to accept a donation for $770.23 from Country Woolens.
Move acceptance?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from William Chase, because it wouldn't be a select board meeting without an item from the Director of Marine Services to approve a proposal for an oyster restoration project. Welcome, Captain.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can you turn off one of those? I think that might be responsible for the echo.
Oh, okay.
Just turn the button on one of them. The button on that one.
This one.
On this one.
Oh,
over
on this one, I'm sorry.
here. Yeah, there.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of quick things from me. First of all, doing my duty as department head, I just want to let you all know that the Marine Services Department is very much in support of this restoration project. I think you've all been given the information on this prior to the meeting, is that correct?
I didn't see it. Did it get added late?
I'm working on it. It came in the other day, I just put it onto the presentation this afternoon.
In my view, this is probably the most proactive and I think environmentally positive project that's ever been started in the Westport River. And I would urge all of you to take a good look at it and eventually to support it. The other,
He's trying to just, are you trying to present something?
I am, I will get it in a second.
the other thing I want to say is I just want to thank Rick Smith publicly for this. He's put an awful lot of work into this project. He's put together quite a coalition of interested parties, and it just runs the whole spectrum of Westport residents, from the Watershed Alliance to the fishermen themselves and everybody in between. So he's put together quite a coalition for all this, and I would urge all of us to support this. One other thing that I need to say about Rick. In addition to all the work that he's done on this project, he has brought integrity, engagement, and enforcement to all things shellfish within the river. And I just want to publicly thank him for all of that.
Thank you, Rick. Wait, we're going to, have we got it or not got it?
Two screens going, I can't find the second screen.
He's having a little difficulty. So can you just tell us a little bit about from the oyster restoration project? Can you tell us like how it's funded and what it is? I'm sure he has some great visuals here.
Yeah, well, so the two who know all of the answers intimately are right behind me. I think I should give the microphone to the two of them so they can explain it. I can say this much. I did ask Dan Goulat, who's from the Nature Conservancy in the beginning, how much was this going to cost the town? And he said zero, and he said that more than once, so we're going to hold him to that. We do have to provide, I guess, like kind is the term for that. In other words, we need to provide some support just in our normal execution of our duties to help them get through this. But there is no money from my budget, there is no money from the town either for this, so.
Thank you. Did you want to talk to this, or do you have someone else to get? We're
Well,
finally showing it.
I think Dan needs to speak to this. I think Dan or Rick should really speak to this.
Now you got to turn that mic back on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the director for the kind words. But in due diligence, this is a partnership, and we're working diligently and we're working together. So, Director, thank you for the kind words. But without your leadership, we couldn't get this done. Just to make this very simple, we don't want to take too much of your time. With me is Dan Goulat from the Nature Conservancy. Dan came to us in the early fall with the Department of Marine Fisheries, with Sean Terrell, to talk about potential for an oyster reef restoration project in the Westport River. And we were picked for the reasons that Dan is going to talk to you a little bit about this. But, you know, Dan, he's committed to this, he works for the Nature Conservancy, but prior to that, he spent 30 years in the Navy and, you know, served our country proudly for 30 years, and now he's moved on to another venture in his life. What we have done, as Dan had asked us to do and guided us, is to try to get some community support in this. So, as the director said, we went out to the Watershed Alliance. They approved it. We met with some of our partners, our private partners on the other side of this, which Dan will talk about. We took it in front of the Shellfish Advisory Board. They unanimously approved the plan and what we hope to get done, as well as the Harbor Advisory Board. So we spoke to those three entities, as well as other people throughout the community. We've had great support for this, and we have great hope that in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a huge difference in not only the water quality within the Westport River, but the fishery, the oyster fishery, and the potential for the oyster fishery to grow. So Dan put together, as well as DMF, the PowerPoint that you're going to see, and it will kind of guide you, he will guide you through quickly what we're going to do here, and we'll go forward from there. So I've said enough. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank Dan for coming out on a freezing cold night to move something forward in a freezing cold river right now. So Dan, it's all yours.
Thanks, Rick. Select board members, Mr. Town Administrator, thanks for making some time in the meeting for me. Like Rick said, as in the lead up to this project, which is actually funded by the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, we did a statewide analysis using habitat factors, logistics, and a few other social factors like the number of people on conservation and shellfish teams and their capacity to help us and partner with us on a project. Westport scored right at the top of the list. And Sean Terrell, my DMF counterpart, who couldn't be here tonight, he lives up in Gloucester and had some other meetings, so he couldn't make it down. Really feel like Westport is one of the best places in this state to bring oysters back. And it's a place that historically had very large oyster populations, wild oyster populations in the past. So our analysis brought us to Westport, and we think oysters can provide a huge amount of not only ecological, but social, economic, and water quality benefits to town residents. And even if you don't like to eat oysters, you want oysters in your estuary. They are the foundation of everything else that makes an estuary healthy. Oyster reefs, like you can see up in that picture, provide the structural habitat that functions to support nursery fish, to support a whole host of forage species and plant life that those fish and all other creatures in the estuary can feed on. It provides shelter from predation. It helps to lock sediments in place. And above all that, they filter a bathtub of water a day each. So they can produce nitrogen removal and benefits to water clarity, which also sort of translates over to the recovery of seagrass and the bay scallops that come along with the seagrass population. So a lot of ecosystem benefits that come to the community from rebuilding oyster reefs in the estuary, the east branch of the Westport River. This is a slide, I'm not going to read all those, but I think it's really important to know that if you put your face in the water with a mask on in just about any estuary in Massachusetts, what you're going to see is that top picture. It's a desert. And what once was a thriving ecosystem is now a desert due to over-harvesting of oysters and not returning shell to the water, siltation from upstream land use changes, and nitrogen getting into the water from a variety of sources. When we build a reef like we just did out in Mashpee a few weeks ago, we put shell back in the water because without shell, oyster larvae will not survive. And that builds a foundation, like a foundation of a house. And in subsequent spring and fall seasons, we put out live oysters onto that reef substrate. We put out oyster seed onto that reef substrate, and then the water column starts to colonize with all the other creatures that are in there. And what you end up with is this picture number 3 at the bottom, which is a reef that's populated by hundreds of different organisms, all contributing to the health of the estuary in some way, but also contributing greatly to recreational and subsistence fishing in the estuary. You can't have a healthy, thriving fish population if you don't have healthy, thriving estuaries, including oyster reefs. Next slide. So this project is, like I said earlier, it's funded by an $800,000 grant from NRCS. It's a statewide project that includes the assessment. It will not cost the town of Westport a single dollar other than in-kind time as we tap into Rick and Bill to get us out on the water here and there, or the town needs to process a notice of intent for permitting. Basically, normal daily business of the town that would be in support of this project is where the town would contribute in-kind time and services to the project. The project will flow through, by, and with the town. So the town maintains control throughout because the town controls the shellfish propagation permit, and the select board controls the lease sites that would be used for restoration. And the town would also control the environmental permitting process, the notice of intent, and issuance of the order of conditions through the Conservation Council. So although TNC and Mass DMF are coming in as enablers with money and expertise from myself, Sean, and other contractors to put the reef in place and populate it, the town maintains control. And then the third piece of this is all of the oysters and the seed would be purchased and sourced through local oyster growers. That would then provide additional economic benefit, and those oysters would be sourced during the time of year when those oyster growers are generally dormant. So supplementing them with an alternative income stream during times when they're normally not making any money, we would come in and buy oysters that maybe are the wrong size or a little bit ugly and they can't go to market as half-shell oysters. We purchase those oysters and put them on the restoration site. So a lot of different overlapping benefits, roughly a 3 to 5 year project. Right about by year 2.5, 3, the reef is in the water and we've populated it with oysters. And then years 3 through 5 are generally monitoring for the reef. So that's also paid for by the Nature Conservancy and DMF, or we do it ourselves. So, you know, we're coming into your community and we're trying to get Westport to accept a project that's going to have great benefit to the community at very little cost to the community. But at the same time, we need you guys to trust us and we need to be committed to the project, which we absolutely are. So next slide. So these are some of the areas. On the left, you see mapped out our exclusionary areas that have use conflicts. Those could be a mooring field, a channel, a quahog relay site. So on the left are all the areas, or they could just be aquaculture sites, which we don't want to disrupt the aquaculture industry in Westport. So we're avoiding those. And in the green, you see areas that are potentially suitable or optimal. Green is really where we're looking, and really where we're looking is up in the upper east branch of the Westport River, just to the south of Hicks Bridge. North of Hicks Bridge, there is an existing wild oyster population, albeit very small. We think that the upper east branch is a really ideal site to restore roughly 10 acres of wild oyster reef that would provide enormous benefits to the waterway and the town, and eventually expand further if there's a desire to, and based on the success of the project. Next slide. So this is sort of a notional, these are not planned sites. We have not got to that stage yet, but this is a notional interpretation to scale of what 10 acres looks like. So, you know, some of those acres for 3 years would be off limits to harvest. And then after several years of restoration, in partnership with Rick and Bill, we would make assessments on where places could be opened up to harvest without sort of, you know, degrading it back and killing off the restoration sites. So that's an adaptive management decision that's based off of monitoring. But this is what 10 acres looks like in the upper east branch. That hashed area is where historical oysters existed according to the records. So roughly 300 acres of oysters used to exist in the upper east branch of the Westport River. At this point, I would say we are down to just a couple of acres that currently exist up there. Our hope is that if we get these 10-acre sites established, they will start to produce larvae, and then we can put shell out, and that shell, additional shell, will catch that larvae seed, and these reefs will start to spread. and create a self-sustaining ecosystem. Next slide. So here's sort of the baseline budget. I don't know, you guys don't want to deep dive, but everything's coming from TNC, NRCS, or DMF, with the exception of a rough estimate of $5,000 of in-kind time over that 3-year project period for Rick, Bill, and perhaps the conservation agent's time to process paperwork, because it does have to flow through the town legally under Mass General Law. Next slide. And then this is a picture of us a couple weeks ago out in Mashpee, putting out oyster shell in an embayment right off of Wacoyet Bay. This is phase 1 of this project, and in a couple months, we'll be putting live oysters onto the shell, and they will spawn this summer, and hopefully oyster larvae will attach to all this additional shell that's now available. And, you know, we are thinking sort of beyond just this 5-year grant. TNC is already budgeting additional funds to take this project beyond the 5-year grant period and ensure it ends with success. You know, what we're looking for as an end state is sort of 15 to 20% of that historic 300 acres. So, I mean, that's right around 50 to 60 acres total that ends up being restored in the East Branch of the Westport River, which would be a system-scale restoration that would produce significant benefits across all those things that I talked about earlier. And, you know, we really want to partner with Westport on this. We feel like local growers are in support, the Watershed Alliance is in support, and we hope that the Select Board will be too.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the information. Can I just, I'm not completely clear on what you're asking for, what action you need this board to take today.
We'd like approval to move forward with additional surveys in these areas so that we can come back with specific points or areas that have latitude and longitudinal demarcation and say we want to build reefs at these specific sites.
Jim, do you have any more clarity on that? Like, what is the action that we need to do here?
I think it's just general guidance saying that the board is somewhat in favor of the program, and we want to see where the final sites are before final approval is.
Okay, so you're not looking for final?
We didn't want to proceed and
Okay.
then bring you final sites without you first being briefed and then having knowledge of the project so that when we do come back, then it's
Understood.
easier to
Thank you.
proceed from there.
Right, go ahead.
Madam Chair, just a point, you know, we realize this is town-wide, and a lot of people may have questions out there. We have gone, like I said, we've gone in front of the Shellfish Advisory. We've talked to all the fishers. We talked to the people that fish those areas all winter. They're all on board. They understand our responsibility to go out when we're out on patrol, when we're out checking areas, when we're out doing our eelgrass studies, which, by the way, we've been doing water quality studies and eelgrass studies with different educational institutions from both Rhode Island and the Commonwealth of Mass. So this was all part of a long-term project to keep our river, or make our river cleaner, so that it does benefit, as Dan said, it does benefit the community, you know, the downstream effects of everything that comes into the economy from this, but also to keep the river and the water quality clean. There's a huge fishery up there for oysters that has been decimated, and over time, for a number of reasons, as Dan said. Some of it's pollution, some of it's overfishing, some of it's all kinds of stuff. Sediment, whatever, and our mission is to clean all that up and turn it into a vibrant fishery again.
Thank you.
For the benefit of the community.
Madam Chair, I have a few questions. I've been provided information on this project, and I think it is obviously very important to the ecosystem and to the river. My only concern is, as Rick has pointed out, I think maybe the public wants to know, on my other hat, I sit on conservation. There's been some eelgrass restoration stuff that has gone close to, you know, property owners along the shore that have caused issues. So my concern is, from a public standpoint, you're saying it's a little bit south of Hicks Bridge. I know there's a lot of boat traffic in there. There's a lot of water skiing. Is there situations where that may get shut off, and will the public be educated to that? You know, we don't want to lose the use of it, but I understand the importance of that. So how does that work, and how does that education component work?
Yeah, I mean, we want the public to own this project. I mean, it's their river, and I think, of all the communities on the south coast, Westport is the one place that identifies with its river more than any other community on the whole south coast. If you go over to Dartmouth and ask someone about the Slocum River, it's kind of, but, the Westport River is the focal point of this community, and we want to make sure we avoid use conflicts, and I think all of our reef restoration generally occurs below high tide level. So, and we're looking to stay out of conflict areas like boating channels. The oyster restorations also bring huge benefit to salt marsh by providing frontal edge protection and possibly even accreting sediment behind the reef to allow that marsh to expand. So we're really looking to push these out to the margins, stay away from private property owners' frontage, and look at places that are currently undeveloped in order to produce effects on salt marsh that may be impaired right now, as well as all the other benefits oyster brings. So we will work with Rick and Bill. We'll work through you. We'll work through other committees in the town to really be deliberate and careful about how we identify these places. And there may be instances where a homeowner is absolutely in favor of an oyster reef out in front of their salt marsh because it may prevent their marsh from eroding and force them into a bulkhead or a seawall or some other hardened solution. So oysters can provide that in a living seawall. So we'll definitely proceed slowly, cautiously, and through by and with everyone in the town.
Rick, did you want to add to that?
Just to follow up to what Dan said, Jake, if you look at that chart up there, that's kind of a beta site, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. All those areas are not within any channeled areas. Those are off the beaten path, so to speak. Those are where people are oystering or can oyster, historically have. But if you look at that chart, it's a good indicator of where we're thinking. It sets a mindset on where we want to be out of the people's way. There's not a lot of water in those areas and whatnot. And the other thing too is we have been doing eelgrass mapping with UMass Boston. So we have a pretty good idea, both by drone and by boat with camera. The director and myself have been out with the team from UMass Boston in their boats, in our boats, with their cameras plotting eelgrass. So we know where the eelgrass is within the river.
Jake, did you have more?
Just one more question, Madam Chair. You said that it's a partnership with local producers, and we have obviously two pretty successful oyster farms here. And you've discussed with them, I mean, are they willing to take on that extra capacity? And if not, would that go to somebody outside of Westport, or how does that work?
So when we had the big group meeting at the Watershed Alliance headquarters, both oyster growers were in attendance, and both basically indicated that they would be supportive of providing additional product to support this. I think as the scale of this grows, there may be a need to pull in some additional oysters from outside the Westport River, but I think that would be on a case-by-case basis, and those would be, they would go through the DMF vetting process before they'd be allowed to be moved.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I think this is a great project. I'm really glad you guys came up. A couple of years ago, my son-in-law dove the scouring hole for the watershed, and you might want to ask the watershed what they found. He actually took a video of the scouring hole just down from the bridge. You might be able to harvest some stuff over there that was huge. The Army Corps was looking to remove the debris from the old bridge and fill that scouring hole.
Right, I heard that.
The thing was packed with big, giant oysters.
Right.
And the watershed's got a video that my son-in-law took of that.
Yet we actually discussed with one of the local hatcheries being able to take some of those local oysters to the hatchery and do a large spawn event with them, and then bring all that spawn back to Westport.
Now, this like studying stuff, how's that gonna work with the cohog relay stuff that we do?
So we'll avoid the cohog relay area completely.
But it's, okay, because I'm kind of familiar with that too. I grew up in Breeds Cove. I'm 64, so the first time they started digging the cohogs out of the Taunton River, I was like about 6. I remember that.
All of those areas delineated in the other chart up there as well. And as everybody knows, DMF and the Division Marine Services, we work very closely with DMF on the whole oyster relay project. So we've identified, we know where those areas are. We probably know them too well.
Oh, I think the oysters will help that stuff too, because I mean, they're bringing them in, you know, I mean, the oysters are gonna purify it. I mean, it's just wonderful for the river. That's what we really need to do.
Is there anything else from the board? Is there anything from the public? Any questions? I think it sounds like a great project. So it's not clear to me that we actually need a motion to support it. I don't know, do we need a
You
motion?
can make a motion just to support the continued development of the oyster restoration project.
That's all.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have 4D, we have a request to approve the certificate of substantial completion for the Diggett Construction LLC. Jim, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, so this is the waterline contract up along Route 6 in the Macomb neighborhood. They are near the end of the project. They still have some minor punch list items to do. I think they have 4 or 5 connections that they're going to start this week on Route 6 that they've been holding off on. All of the Route 6 work within the layout is complete. All the patching is complete. The roads have been overlaid. Like I said, there's some loaming and seeding along the center island of Route 6 that they did before the winter, but they'll probably have to do again in the spring. This has gone to the engineer, Kleinfelder Engineering, and they have recommended approval of the substantial completion. And its substantial completion is essentially regulated by state law. If the punch list items are less than 1%, we need to reduce the retainage down to 1%, or the punch list, whichever is greater. And the punch list, according to Kleinfelder, is less than the 1%. So I would recommend granting the certificate of substantial completion.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair. You said, so the punch list is, you said just 4 or 5 connections are left for them to do at this point?
That's the majority of it. That's probably about $25,000 worth of work. And then
Okay.
the rest is just touch-up stuff.
Okay. And have you heard back from anyone with any concerns or complaints as to where we're at right now with the completion of it?
Last couple of months, I have not. In fact, we had one resident come in and compliment us, so we'll take that.
I've not been a strong supporter of Diggett Construction, but I think they've at least brought the roads back to more than passable conditions, so I'll probably support this.
Anything else?
If I could ask the town administrator, are there any bonds involved in this? Is this organization have to?
There is a bond, and that they're required to hold the bond until the retainage is released. And I'd have to double check, but they may be required to hold it until Mass DOT releases
Okay.
their permit. And
Right.
actually, we wouldn't release the final release until Mass DOT signed off anyway, so, yeah, there will be a bond in place.
Good. Thank you.
Anything else? What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I'd move to approve the certificate of substantial completion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain.
So we have, were you in favor, Jay?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 4 in favor and 1
Amazingly.
abstention. The Diggett project. We have a request from Michael Burris, the town planner, to endorse the hazard mitigation plan. Welcome.
You're not going to go through that whole book tonight, are you?
No, I promise. I promise I will not. But there's a lot of good info in here, so.
All right, so I have here Annalise Boylan from Par Corporation. They were the consultant with us on this project. We started this a couple of years ago with a grant application to MEMA and received funding for that, and we went out and selected Par as the consultant for it. So It's been about a 2-year project that we've been working on to update the town's hazard mitigation plan. The last one was, I think, last adopted in 2009 or something like that.
2004.
2004, so even longer than I was thinking. So it's been a long time coming, and it's an important thing to make sure that we keep this up to date, because then it can unlock access to different grant opportunities. So would you like to give the board an overview?
Sure. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Annalise Boylan. I'm a civil engineer at Park Corporation and also a planner. I'm also joined by Jimmy LaCrosse, who also helped participate for this hazard mitigation plan update with the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee. I want to thank the committee members so much for their dedication over the last 18 months. There's been a lot of data that's been collected, reviews, continuous reviews of information as it's been updated and been reviewed with the public. So I just wanted to thank them as well for their hard work. A lot of effort goes into this plan, so we're happy to summarize some of it for you tonight. Just a quick overview. The presentation will be brief. There's a lot of content to go over. So if you have any follow-up questions, please let me know and I can elaborate on some of that information. Information is also available on the Town of Westport's website, where we have recordings of some of our past public meetings as well. So we're going to be talking about the hazard mitigation planning process, the data collection, and the natural hazard identifications, that data that was collected, what we found through that analysis, and then what goals and objectives were determined, and then finally the proposed measures and implementation steps next. So for anyone who isn't familiar with the hazard mitigation planning process, it is a program through FEMA. And natural hazard preparedness by FEMA is defined as the hazard mitigation reduces loss of life and property by lessening the impact of disasters. There are lots of different planned benefits by communities going through this process and identifying which natural hazards most impact them and where they're most vulnerable. It includes protecting public safety, reducing damage to existing and future development, preventing damage to community assets, and also helps connect communities with obtaining some of their goals collectively and then achieving some of those objectives as well. And as Michael mentioned, the last plan that the town of Westport had was back in 2004 when FEMA first launched their hazard mitigation program. So the hazard mitigation program has required updates. The plan has to be updated every 5 years. And in that 5 years, you have to identify what new natural hazards may impact your community most. That includes natural hazards and climate change impacts. Then review if there's any new community assets that need to be inventoried into your plan, and then engage the community to understand what impacts they see the most. So tonight, we're at the finish line requesting plan adoption from the board tonight. We've gone through the planning process and resources through the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee, identifying all those resources and collecting that data for us. Then we went ahead and did the risk assessment process, where we take all that data and kind of break it down to understand where the town is most vulnerable. Then from there, determine mitigation strategies for how we can better protect the town of Westport and its community assets. And then finally, we're at the finish line, which is the request for the plan adoption. From here, then it'll be sent to MEMA and FEMA for review if it is adopted. And that takes about 2 to 3 months for that federal and state process to review the information. So I'll just go over this briefly to talk a little bit about the data that's been collected and the natural hazards that have been identified. Like I mentioned, the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee helped collect all of the town's previous planning documents and reports for PAR to be able to review the content of it. One of the major items was the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Summary Findings. That was a workshop held back in 2018 that collected a lot of information for the town of Westport. In addition, there are a few other different plans that we used as well. Then we had our first public meeting back on October 17th, where we issued a survey out to the public and then invited the public to join us to go through some of the findings of that initial data, hear from the public where their areas of concerns were, making sure that all the community assets were properly identified, and then from there moved into the risk assessment phase, which then led to the mitigation strategy development. So once all the data was broken down and actualized, we were able to have constructive conversations about where we wanted to implement strategies and where that made the most sense. So we took resources from other action plans that have been developed also in the past few years, such as the East Beach Corridor Vulnerability Study, and reviewed those action plans to understand what is still applicable and should be carried into the hazard mitigation plan and which ones may have already been completed. And then we had a public meeting on June 16th where we talked about some of those draft mitigation strategies, refined it with the Hazard Mitigation Committee, and then now have our final mitigation strategies outlined within the final document. So just a quick summary, FEMA requires 14 natural hazard types to be reviewed and analyzed. And out of those top natural hazards for Westport that were identified was flooding, coastal storms, extreme temperature, and high winds. And then from there, hazard mitigation goals and objectives were identified. This included goal number 1, reduce the loss of life and property due to natural hazard impacts. Goal number 2, improve floodplain and infrastructure management resilience in the town of Westport. Goal number 3, refine communications as it relates to emergency preparedness and natural hazard impacts. And then finally, goal 4 was protect water quality for environmental assets in the town of Westport. So in total, based on those 4 main goals and objectives, 29 proposed mitigation measures were developed. Again, I won't get into all the details, but I'm happy to take questions if you have specific items regarding some of the mitigation measures in the table. But just to highlight on some of the items, to summarize them, stormwater management planning and culvert upgrades are a few that are identified for target areas. Floodplain management and coastal retreat feasibility studies is another one for certain specified areas discussed with the public. Roadway and signage improvements for low-lying areas and evacuation routes was also discussed. And then leveraging regional partnerships for extreme heat mitigation strategies and tree management strategies. And then finally, public education strategies for emergency preparedness, communication, and then floodplain awareness as well were some of the topics identified for that public education. So now Michael's just going to talk a little bit about the next steps for the implementation plan, and then moving forward.
So what we'll be doing in a couple of months this spring is to reconvene the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee after FEMA hopefully approves the plan. And so right now that committee is staffed by myself, Chief Dunn, and Chief Baldwin, Phil Weinberg, and Jim Whiten. And we agreed to meet quarterly moving forward after FEMA issues its approval. And so what we'll be discussing as a committee is completing the projects that we have currently ongoing, as well as identifying projects that we would like to prioritize in the future. So a couple that are related to this plan that are ongoing right now is the Barrier Beach Management Plan. We've talked about that a lot, particularly as it relates to East Beach, but also it involves Atlantic Avenue and Beach Avenue. The Climate Resilience Committee is working on its Climate Resilience Plan, so that's a very similar plan to this, but it's a more overarching plan that is looking at different segments of the town that this plan doesn't give attention to. So for example, the Climate Resilience Plan has a whole robust section on climate change health impacts. That isn't necessarily considered in the hazard mitigation plan because it's more related to the built environment and policies and projects that we can implement to improve or to reduce risks to life and property. And then we'll be continuing designing culvert upgrades. I think if you recall, we had Buzzards Bay Coalition do a presentation on this for Drift and Cornell roads a couple of months ago. Go to the next slide. So there are a number of different ongoing projects well, I guess there are a couple of other ongoing projects I can talk about as well. Our climate resilience plan is identifying vulnerable historic resources. We also have ongoing stormwater hotspot analysis, which is like taking a sub-watershed of the Westport River watershed and doing an analysis of land use characteristics, the town's drainage infrastructure, soil types, and developing like a heat map for areas that there may be stormwater issues to identify, to give us some priority on where to focus on stormwater upgrades. And we have another project where we're going to do a salt marsh analysis, doing an assessment of our vulnerability of the salt marshes, particularly the marsh islands, and then looking at other areas that have not been studied to see if there are opportunities to facilitate their landward migration. So on to upcoming projects. We have submitted a number of eco one-stop expressions of interest for a handful of different projects. One is to continue the work that's being done for the barrier beaches. So some things that have been discussed is getting some assistance with developing a dune and shoreline change monitoring program together, doing some public education related to signage on the barrier beaches as to what is allowed on the barrier beaches, what's not allowed, trying to encourage people to stay off of the dunes or be a little bit more careful when they're backing up vehicles on the dunes so they're not backing into those dunes, things like that. And then we've discussed having a beach grass, or asking for funds for beach grass planting and to stockpile material that's compatible on the beaches to facilitate, to bolster vulnerable sections of the barrier beach that's right adjacent to the roadway. We have submitted another expression of interest to identify evacuation routes and acquire signage to install on local roads to lead people onto the main arterials into town. So this is particularly, I think, more important for visitors in town who may not be as familiar with the local roads. And then we would also like to, as a public education component as well, in areas where there are roads that are likely to flood in a major storm surge event, have signage indicating that this is a road likely to flood during a storm event and to indicate the height that it could flood to under a 100-year storm event. And then we have been trying to work on getting funding to do stormwater and flood resilience at the head of Westport. It's an area where the bridge is overtopped during flood events. And so we have, in the last year, requested funds from the Municipal Vulnerability Action Grant Program to do that analysis and to come up with some basic engineered plans. We missed the cut by about 2 points, so we're going to resubmit that and hopefully get that to move forward. And then we also have some other grants outstanding right now for the cold water culverts. We have a $3.4 million grant that's outstanding for that. And tomorrow I'll be submitting another $1 million request to the National Fish Passage Program to move some of those projects through engineering and construction. And then, I have one more item on here. We are going to be looking at updating the master plan, so this will all kind of fall under the umbrella of the master plan. So maybe we'll be doing that in 2026. And then the fire department and the Board of Health have done some work on, or some research on an e-alert system for the town in the event of there's some sort of event that they need to put out a push notification for on people's phones, massive flooding or something like that. Chief Baldwin, would you like to say anything else about Code Red? And while he's doing that, I also have some handouts for the board. This was a presentation. I don't think it's been brought to the select board yet, but it's something that was prepared by Matt Armendo and Chief Baldwin.
I'll touch on it briefly. There is a presentation that we have prepared, and we'd like to come back for a more formal presentation of the Code Red program. Basically, right now, the town has no formal way of notifying the public in the event of anything from a natural disaster, a boil water order, especially with the new water lines that have come in, closing of the transfer station, town hall, things like that. Many local communities have adopted Code Red. It's a platform that allows you to send out text messages, emails, phone calls. It's not something that we would overuse. It would strictly be for emergency purposes only. If you overuse it, it tends to lose its, people tend to remove themselves from the messaging. They would have to sign up for it. Originally, the cost came in just around $8,000. We don't have a source of funding yet. We worked with the vendor and got the cost down to just over $4,000, and still offering many of the features that we think would be beneficial. During the hazardous mitigation process, one of the things that the committee discussed and members of the community was that there is really no formal way of communicating with the public, whether it's social media or the town website. So I think this platform here, it also can target certain areas if you had anything from a missing elderly person, possibly with dementia, active shooter incidents, just flood warnings, et cetera. It would, it's a very versatile program. It can be used for many different features. It's just right now, just kind of nailing down that funding source. It also has some internal things for town government where it's my understanding that town hall has a phone tree for its employees. This would satisfy that, where a message could be sent out to certain departments, et cetera. We have that internally at the fire department. We're able to message our employees through an app. It has to do with our dispatching CAD. So I think it's got a lot of benefits. I think the cost is relatively minimal. There are some grant options. EMPG is a grant that would fund it. It's not. I wouldn't recommend solely relying on a grant. And a good example of that is EMPG is most likely not going to be available in the state of Massachusetts this year because the federal government and the state of Massachusetts are not seeing eye to eye on things. So that grant that we relied on recently is now up in the air and most likely not going to get it this year. So again, you have the presentation in front of you that was put together by myself and mainly Matt Armando. We'd be happy to come back after the first of the year if there's an appetite for a funding source to dive into it a little bit deeper. And also, I want to just mention while I'm standing here, because I know Mr. McGuigan has brought it up, part of the communication would be a PIO, a Public Information Officer. I think the town also needs that, where if we had some sort of significant incident in town, where the information is channeled through one individual. Typically, it wouldn't be the town administrator, it wouldn't be the fire chief, it wouldn't be the police chief, because those individuals are usually on the scene working and actively engaged. It's somebody else that can come out and just address the public. So it all kind of falls back into communication and why I think Code Red is important. We, from the fire department, would have an aggressive sign-up campaign. QR codes, things like that can be posted around town. As you guys know, we do many public events. We would have a table set up there as well, just to kind of get people prepared. East Beach, when it has to be evacuated, those people could sign up for that particular alert. And right now, we go out and hand out flyers. I know the select board sends out an email, but we actually bang on doors down there and hand out a paper flyer. So again, it's a lot of, it'd be a good use to the departments and the town. And if we'd like to discuss it further if you guys would like to have us back.
Yeah, sure. We would. Anything else, Michael? I mean, I think you were on this committee, so I'm just giving you, anything you want to add to what they said?
No, thank you.
All right, any questions or comments? Jake, you usually start us off.
No, I actually agree with Chief Baldwin on this and Michael and everyone else. I think it's necessary in today's day and age. I think if a natural disaster happened, the fallback will be on the elected officials and those that didn't have a plan in place. So I appreciate the administration, the chief and everyone taking the step forward. I think Code Red is great. And for $4,000, we better find a way to fund it for $4,000 a year.
So the action you're looking for is for us to endorse the hazard mitigation plan? Is that what you?
That's correct. In order for us to submit to MEMA and FEMA, the select board has to make an endorsement of the plan.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to endorse the plan. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item we have on the agenda is a request from Len Potter to approve a two-person private cemetery at 15 Atchison Lane. This has been reviewed by the Board of Health, and they have approved this. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Len Potter. I'm a registered sanitarian right here from Westport. Mr. Gallagher and his wife approached me about a year ago about obtaining a permit for a private burial on their property. And they live at 15 Atchison Lane, which is off of Horseneck Road. It's a gravel subdivision road, goes all the way down to the river, and they're at the very end. So I suggested to them that they come up with a surveyed plot plan showing property lines and location of the cemetery, and also resource areas that may be involved, such as riverfront, wetlands setback, et cetera, and also wells in adjacent properties in their own well. It's quite a large lot, so they were able to come up with a plot that met all the criteria. And what they're asking for is permission. They've got Board of Health permission. We had a hearing with the Board of Health. We had a meeting, DEP also approved that. So now the third approval necessary is the Board of Selectmen. It's going to be a green burial, and the Board of Health suggested that it be a natural site, so maybe a field stone or a low marker to show where the burial site would be. And the DEP requires, in their general regulations, 200 feet from a well. They're 165 feet from their own well, but it is on a downhill gradient, so DEP thus granted permission on their behalf for the Gallaghers to locate the cemetery on their property. And that's pretty much it. So we're here for the third approval, which will allow them to get a permit to have their cemetery on their own property. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. You have anything from the board?
Madam Chair, my only question is the future ownership of that property? I mean, would...
It's going to have to be shown on a deed.
Okay.
In other words, I don't want to say an easement, but it's going to have to be shown, the plan recorded, and indicate where that thing is. And it will be a marker.
Okay.
Mrs. Gallagher is here, I believe. So it will be marked. Yeah.
Thank you.
But technically, a cemetery cannot be part of the area of a lot.
Okay.
So that if you were subdividing, and it has
Yep.
happened, you subdivide a property and there's a cemetery on it, you have to exclude that area.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I know many of us have heard of Betty Slade, who's done a lot of surveying of these private cemeteries. People don't think there's that many cemeteries in Westport. There's like 110, because a lot of, back in the day, they used to
Yep.
bury on your
Yep.
property, right? So what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I would move acceptance of this request.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd say congratulations, but it seems to be
Yeah.
your cemetery, so.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
No problem.
So the next two items are kind of related. So we have a request to approve the mediation agreement with the City of Fall River for the Water Enterprise Fund. It's been a while since we talked about this, Jim.
This is the first thing I worked on when I started in this position back 4 years ago. It's been going on and on. I walked into the office, there was a stack of folders about this thick with bills going back to 2016 that had just never been reconciled, or at least never agreed upon with the City of Fall River. So we went through those. We had actually hired an accountant that specializes in water billing at one point. Unfortunately, he passed before he completed his report, but anyway, we've been working on it. Mr. Soers and myself went to mediation, I think last January or February, with Judge Moses back in New Bedford, and we reached an agreement. Original billing was up close to 1.7 million. I think we all realized that it wasn't even close to that, but the agreement that we reached with the City of Fall River is $293,000. The Tupper Water Board has approved the agreement. I do not have the signed agreement yet. We were supposed to have it before this meeting, but we just weren't able to get it. But the agreement hasn't changed. So I would recommend that the board approve the mediation agreement for $293,000. I believe $150,000 is coming from ARPA funds that we set aside last year to fund this, and the remaining $143,000 would come from the Water Enterprise Fund.
Thank you. I know you were involved with this. Did you want to add anything?
No, Jimmy handled it.
I think we
Very familiar with all the aspects.
I think we moved to approve the funding of the agreement subject to receipt of the signed agreement.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
There was just one thing. So do we have the money available to pay them once the agreement's?
We do. We have 150,000 from ARPA, and we have 143 in the enterprise fund to pay.
So they'll be paid in full on one payment, or?
Yeah, we'll do one payment.
Okay.
Hopefully next month we'll get that out.
Yeah, we all need to pay our bills.
We need to pay our bills.
The next item is a request to approve the intermunicipal water agreement with the city of Fall River. You want to explain this one?
Yeah, so we had an agreement with the city of Fall River, which was a 10-year agreement that started in 2013 and expired in '23. Most of the other communities, when I say most of the other communities, Tiverton, Rhode Island, as well as Freetown, had renegotiated their agreements with Fall River because of the mediation was never settled, that our new agreement kind of got held up, or it did get held up. City Council approved the agreement verbally the other night, last week, on Tuesday night. It's still, there was a Tupper Water Board meeting, I think this week, where they will approve it as well. So at this point, I was hoping to have approval from the board, but I think it'll be the next meeting when the board has to approve it. But just in general, this is more favorable to the town of Westport. Right now, we're paying 70% over Fall River's rates for each cubic foot of water. With the new agreement, we'll only be paying 55% above Fall River water rates, which is the same as Freetown and Tiverton. And anything over a certain amount, which is roughly around 27,100 cubic feet of water, that rate would be reduced down to 5% over Fall River's rates. So as we gain new customers, the overall cost of the water will be decreased. That 27,000 is right about where we are now prior to these new properties connecting. So if everybody uses the same amount of water that they've been using with these new properties, the additional CCF would be reduced from actually 70% as it is now down to 5% over Fall River rates for that additional water. So at this point, I'm not asking you to take any action. I am going to send it to town council. I sent it to him earlier last week. He had a couple of comments. Just want to make sure they're okay with it. It's a 10-year agreement, so we want to make sure everything's good.
Okay, so you don't need it, you
I
don't need us
action on
to
this right now, no.
act. Okay, so is there any question?
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Jim, to get this resolved before you go into retirement. It's been a long time.
Jake?
Dick had his hand up.
Just a quick one. Is this where Mr. Maury May came in recently representing the Water Enterprise and went through these numbers for us?
Yes, Maury has been helpful, very helpful as
Yeah,
well.
okay. I remember that, and I know we looked upon that favorably, so this is sort of the end product of that.
And the IOC committee's been supportive and pushing it.
Good.
Madam Chair, so you're saying our water volume level is pretty much where it would need to be to get to the 5% over Fall River rates, or?
Yeah, and it would only be for that additional water. So anything over the
Okay.
26,000, so.
So anyone under that is at the 55% over,
Yeah, and it
almost
wouldn't
like a
be-
tax
Wouldn't be
rate.
project, property specific, it would be the overall payment that we pay Fall River.
Okay, okay. I mean, I've stated it, I don't think Westport should be in the utility business anyway, and my only other concern, this is more of an environmental concern, anyone that drives by the Fall River Reservoir right now, with the amount of rain and we've had, it is extremely low, and the question becomes, does that inflate the price of what we end up paying, even though, over the Fall River rates, because they can always keep setting their Fall River rates, and we're still at a percentage over whatever Fall River is paying for that water, so I'm not a fan of being in the utility business at this point, especially when we only have a 1/3 adoption rate by residents when they get connected to water. Only 1/3 adopt that, so.
Madam Chair, I do it. So there was some talk about Fall River taking it over. Has there been any more talk about that?
I haven't heard anything specific. I know other communities are looking at long-term possibly tying in, which may extend it in Westport or other communities, but nothing specific.
All right, so you don't need any action tonight. Is there anything
On that
else
one, no.
before we
Nope.
move on? Okay. So we have a request to approve an amendment to the employment agreement for James Hartnett. So if you check look at the agreement. So this is just to allow, it's an amendment so that in case the new town administrator needs to consult with Jim after Jim's retirement, that we would be able to, we have a contract in place so that he could consult with them. We don't expect a lot of hours, I don't think.
I don't. I met with town administrator a couple of times, and I don't think he's anticipating a lot of hours. I think it would be more just finding something that I have in my files that might be labeled a little differently from somebody else that would label it, and just give him updates on some of the projects, if need be. Yeah, so it should be minimal, if at all.
So would this be like an hourly basis,
It's-
if, like consulting?
It's an hourly, it allows an hourly rate
Okay.
for consulting, and it would be at the discretion of the town administrator.
Okay.
Obviously, it'd be budget limited, we don't have a
Okay.
ton of money.
And it's based upon his current hourly rate or
Right.
yeah, the equivalent of that.
Okay.
I mean, is it like minimums, or, if the guy calls you up?
No, I-
It just says hourly rate.
15-minute call like an attorney?
No, I mean, I'm just looking to help out a little
All
bit.
right.
I mean, if, there's something to be said for
Appreciate
walking out the door and not thinking about it
Yeah,
too,
I
so, but
appreciate
if
that.
something needs to be done.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just one question on section 1. It says at the request of the town administrator or select board. Is there a reason why it's or? I mean, this just makes it easier if the select board has some issue they want you to deal with, and the town administrator as well. And there's one, it's not here, the mention of select board is not to override the town administrator's request. He could, according to this, he can independently request your assistance.
Yes,
And by this, we can do the same thing if we had an issue that we want to.
that's the way it's worded right now.
Okay. I think it's clear, I just needed to talk about it a little bit, to understand it fully. It sounds good to me, is what I'm saying.
All right, so what's the pleasure?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request to close the town offices for 1 hour tomorrow, December 16, from 12 to 1 for an employee Christmas luncheon.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Manny Soares to be appointed as a seasonal employee for the highway department.
I decided I wasn't going to do that.
Okay, so you're withdrawing that?
Yes.
Okay.
I did mention that to you, Jim. I don't know why it's on the agenda.
Well, the agenda
I
was posted on
misunderstood
Thursday.
you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving that from the
Kind of
agenda.
enjoying retirement.
We have 5A, we have the short-term rental application process. This is the other lingering one that we had for Jim to wrap up.
So, as part of there were two things as part of the town meeting approval last year. They approved the zoning bylaw that allows short-term rentals, and they approved a town bylaw that puts the permitting authority with the select board. And it allows the select board to promulgate regulations to start the permitting process. The short-term rental committee had recommended a self-certification type application.
That's for Jake.
Required, I think, fire department approval. When we were looking at internally here in the department, we thought that maybe we should have, my suggestion would be to have the actual inspections, the Board of Health, the code enforcement officer, and the fire department inspect prior to issuing a permit. That would be my suggestion, but when I passed that around to the various departments, there was some concern about just having the ability, staff, and time to do those inspections. So I don't have a good answer for you on this one. There's two options. One, they can go with a self-certification. I think my only concern with that, if they're self-certifying and the board is issuing a permit, is there any presumption that those certifications are correct? That was my concern.
Madam Chair, would that be something we could get town council to look at as to what liability the town or the select board would have by approving those types of permits? Because I think with the amount of safety code and building codes, I mean, there was, it could be quite an issue with, depending on accessory dwellings and what they have in there, what they don't have. And I don't think we or the town want to be on the hook for that if they're self-certifying, right? But I also understand the manpower issue.
I mean, right now, I think there's 185 on the state list, short-term rentals.
Okay.
That are listed with the state. You know, I'm sure there's more than that in town that aren't necessarily listed. You know, it's a lot of inspections.
Yeah.
You know, I can do that, I can ask for town council, I can also suggest the 3 departments meet, Board of Health, Building, and Fire, and see what their actual time constraints or how much time they think it would be to inspect these. Honestly, I think if they went out and they had to be inspected, I don't see the compliance going to be that high right off the bat. I think it's going to be a struggle to get 180-some people in here and get certified. And then the issue is, what if they don't come in? What's the follow-up? Do we send a notice out again saying, hey, you haven't certified, you got a month, they still don't get certified, then what, you know, there's a lot of work involved in, and there's no easy solution. All communities are dealing with this, so. Right now, they're permitted under the zoning bylaw. They say they need a permit from the select board, but we don't have a permit in place, so I think they can operate. I don't think there's anything that prevents them. Once we get a permit in place, then they should comply to those permit requirements.
Madam Chair. I own rental property, although I seldom, and haven't done it in, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, engaged in short-term rentals, but I looked at this. I think the only way to go is, even though there are problems with this, is self-certify. It's the only way to get this off the ground. However, that may not be forever. It could be that we do that for this year and then continue to look at this and make recommendations. Maybe we'll have at that point being probably after the summer, a better idea of how many we have and what the issues are. We'll also know if there have been problems. But I personally don't know how important it is to have to certify this with others, with other departments, and as it going. I mean, this is like a trial run almost. And at some point, you have to, you know, these people own the property. They generally take care of their property. They have homeowners insurance on the property in all likelihood. So I don't think there's a lot here that's going to go wrong, but we won't know until it happens. And to engage in an enormously complex process, which was talked about when we had the subcommittee, 2 subcommittees, I think, on this. So it was sort of acknowledged that although it's not perfect, it's like the best option of all those available. So I don't know, I'm not suggesting that we go about this in an unsafe way, but I think the practical problem here is, at some point, you got to trust the people that they're going to do the right thing and look for examples where it hasn't been done right, and you start to take action. We start to build up an understanding of who the possible offenders might be. But I would say probably the majority of people, there's not going to be any kind of a problem here. So I think of this a little bit like a solution looking for a problem. I don't know what the problem is, but it was understood right from the get-go that this is going to be a little bit dicey at first, and it's going to be unclear. We may have to go with this and run the risk. And that was not maybe the optimal solution, but it was the only solution that seemed to be able to pass muster with the town meeting and everybody else. So that's what I'm suggesting, that we, the recommendation here for tonight is to see if a reasonable system can be developed. I don't have any problem with that. I don't know what that really entails. You've indicated that this is going to be complex and time-consuming. So I'm comfortable with it being taken in steps, and we reconsider later in the year if we need to do more certification by inspections, fire inspections, and so on and so forth. So if you want to just have approval of this, I'll vote for it, but I'm saying I don't know how urgent this is.
What are we approving?
Well, the recommendation is that the enforcements and the select board staff meet to see if a reasonable system can be developed to implement this permit. I'm saying, I don't know if we need to do that. I mean, like I say, I'll vote for it if it's necessary, but I don't know what that's really all about. We're going to have meetings, you're going to have a subcommittee.
So if you go with the self-certification, I don't think that's needed.
Madam Chair, is there a, well, I think 185, you said 185 properties, right? Or,
Are on the state list, right?
so, I mean, the inspection, these are obviously all seasonal, summer, probably residents where they're getting, obviously the most rentals. Is there a way that you could do like a hybrid, like a self-certification with a spot check? Does that cover the town any better, where like if you have 185, you do 10% spot check to make sure, because I think the only issue you have is, do they have their fire alarms, do they have, and I don't know if there's any ADA compliance stuff with that, but, you do a self-certification and just have them do a much smaller number on a, rotating basis each season, Granted, it'd probably take 10 years to get to all of them, but maybe that helps, I don't know.
Well, one of the concerns, so first of all, we don't want to impede them from renting out their
Yeah.
properties, right? So we don't want to put something in place that's too restrictive for them to just comply, right? So I think we'd have to start with kind of a softer rollout anyway. One of the things I was really concerned about was, I want to be able, if we have a complaint, to send the fire inspector or the building inspector or the fire, or, whoever needs to go in there if there's a complaint. And so my thought was, if they've self-certified, we just have some disclaimer that's like, subject to, you're subject to inspection from a real inspection, right? So what you were talking about is like a policy of, like maybe like doing so many per year. And
A rolling 5%. I mean,
Yeah.
and then you run the homeowners know they're going to run the risk of possibly losing their permit if they're selected in the lottery or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So that you would kind of encourage compliance by fear that they could get that inspection.
Well, and the other part is, if we're gonna have to do physical inspections on all of them, we have to increase the permit fee, right? I don't wanna, we're already getting rental revenue, taxation revenue from the rooms tax. So I don't wanna be too burdensome on the owners there, which we would have to be. If we had to have all these inspectors out, then you're gonna have to charge more for a permit. So I kinda like this idea of, let's draft the policy of self-certification, just make sure it says that it's subject to actually being inspected, and then we kind of have like a no penalty kind of rollout kind of thing. But yeah, I think we do need to still work through the departments on how they're gonna manage it, or how our new town administrator can help us work out with the assistant to the town administrator, how to work that out. But I think we should just go forward with the self-certification with the option to, and then see what else we build off from there. That's my opinion.
So I think we move forward with the, no, I'll let Jacob frame this one up.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion, actually.
So, okay, then we just, let the minutes show that we're proceeding with the self-certification process, that will build in spot checks.
Okay. Do we want to move that, or, I don't think we need to, but.
No. I think we just based on approval, we just let the departments look at that and see if
Okay.
that's even feasible. I don't think the
Okay,
185
well,
is.
that is the framework. So let's give that to the framework of what we want you to work with the departments, and then see if you can come up with
So
something.
then I think we'd have to come back before the select board and set a fee for the permit. and-
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, finalize the permit itself.
So that give you enough to kind of move forward?
We're good.
Give it to Paula to move forward? Okay. The budget recommendation.
So we're required to get a budget into the select board in December, a preliminary budget. Some of these we went through at the last meeting, so I won't go into great detail with some of these, but, we have had some positive improvements over the last couple of years. Our local receipts are coming in at the level of about 78 to 83% of estimate based on the actual, which is the range you want to be in. You want to be somewhere around 80%. So that has improved substantially over the last couple of years. New growth came in at 627, which we usually budget about 400, knowing that it's going to be a little bit higher. That new growth for new revenue is picked up in the following year anyway, so when we split the revenues between the town and the school, that is accounted for in that calculation. We're not looking at any staff reductions. There's an unfilled position in the highway department that we're looking to cut from that department. There's two other positions that, one they filled tonight, and another one I think they're looking to fill shortly, so those can still be filled within the proposed budget. The assessor's overlay account, that has been in the positive for the last few years. And free cash, we certified at $3.6 million. This we talked about at the last meeting. Our biggest local receipt is excise tax. And we were concerned last year because it decreased by about 5%. But this past year, it went up 13%. So we're back on the line that we've been using for the last few years. So it gives us a better opportunity to project our local receipts. State aid, at least for this preliminary budget, we budgeted at a 1% increase, so that's conservative. On average, we're about 2.7, 2.8% increase a year. So if that comes in, that's, I think, around 165. It seems like a lot, but it's probably only about $165,000 more in revenue that we would split with the schools. Expenses, salaries, you know, we had years where we were going 2% a year. Now we're up closer to 4% a year. So that's having an impact on our budget as well as all the other municipalities. And there was a report I sent around that came from Mass Municipal, The Perfect Storm, which is just showing how all these communities are struggling right now with Proposition 2.5. Mass Municipal Association also came out with their own report last week, which kind of indicates this, well, it does indicate the same issue. Health insurance. Right now, I have in the budget about a 15% increase. We met with Maya today, our insurance. They don't insurance for health insurance, but they mentioned that health insurance for most communities, minimum is 15% increase they're planning on this year, some as high as 25%. So if we go over 15%, that will be a big budget impact. Right now, like I said, we're budgeted for a 15% increase. And any flexibility we had in that account is pretty much gone after that 15%.
Jim, are we working with other, aren't we kind of commingled with other communities?
So we're part of Southeastern Mass Health Group, so we're with, we added, I think, 3 communities in the past year, so we're probably up close to 9 different communities.
Okay.
Regional School District, there's, I think, 6 or 7 towns. And,
Okay.
yeah.
And we had a big turnback from health insurance from a year ago, right?
We did. We had, I think, almost $500,000.
But we're not expecting.
So for FY '26, we kind of reduced that gap for our current fiscal year. And then next year, we average about this year right now, we're about $302,000 a month in our payments. So we were at 270, 272 a year ago. So, you know, it's going up. And last year, 2 out of the last 3 years, our insurance group actually brought down some of our increase. So that's like using free cash to offset your budget, so eventually that's going to catch up, so. I'm hoping, I think the 15% will cover us, is the short answer, but it's possible that it could go up more than that. Pension assessment was 5.8%, that is a fixed number, we know what that number is, that's in the preliminary budget. Property insurance, I had a 10% increase. We just reduced that after meeting with Maya today. They're looking maybe 5 to 6%, so that'll help. State assessments, I budgeted a 4% increase. That's mainly school choice and charter schools. It's tough to pick that number. It comes in all over the place, but I think 4% will cover us. As far as the town budgets, the original budget requests, when these came in, were about $450,000 in the whole. The recommended budget, we get about $23,000 surplus, at least at this point, and that'll change over the next month or 2. In order to get there, we had to cut the OPED down from 150 to 100. The part-time Board of Health clerk, we did not include that they requested, that's about $27,000. That might be something the board wants to look at moving forward if some of our state numbers come in a little bit higher than the preliminary budget shows. There was a highway position that was cut. There were 3 unfilled positions at the highway department. He just filled one tonight. He's looking to fill another one in the next month, and the 3rd one has been cut. Police department, they had requested an additional officer. That was not included in the budget. And they also requested school safety training. That was originally in the preliminary budget. That's why we have like a $23,000 surplus. I'd suggest that we put that in a town meeting article because it's more of a one-time expense. They're looking to do training with police, fire in the schools, kind of active shooting training. When they do that, they have to do it over the course of 2 days because they have to split the shifts with the police and fire. And it's all overtime, and it's just bringing in the professionals is expensive. This just shows you where we are for new revenue. So this black line that goes up and down here is where we've been for new revenue over the years. You can see last year, we were actually very high at 2.2 million, the year before 1.9 million. This year, we're about 1.7. Hopefully, by the time we end up going through the budget process, we can get that up closer to 1.9. But I don't see us much higher than that. We've been asking departments, town departments and the school department to kind of plan for 3.5% increase on a yearly basis, because I think that's what the new revenues will support. Luckily, we've been above that the last couple of years, but we could very easily be below that red line, 1.4 million. So right now, our new revenue, we're about $2.2 million, and then we offset some of our costs. We got, the campground was paid off last year, so that's a negative 147. That does not get charged against the new revenue. We have a pension assessment that went up, health and life insurance is still an estimate, regional school is an estimate, state assessments is an estimate, but overall, we have about 500,000 in deductions. So we have about $1.7 million of new revenue to split between the town and the schools.
I just want to just be clear, in the budget that you've put together, you, for the school amount, you took the school amount from FY '26 minus the 480,000 from free cash that was used last year. And then they get the part of the 5446. So this is a positive, an increase over their 26 budget of $429,000, right?
That's right.
So that's what's in your budget, is a total increase, no free cash or anything, total increase to the school of $429,000.
That's correct.
Okay, but we don't have their proposed budget.
We don't have
Yeah.
their budget. I
Yeah.
do know that they have about $700,000 in just salary increases alone, so that's going to have to be accounted for. Right now, we're looking, like you said, about $430,000 on the school side, above last year's total budget. There's a couple of things that may allow us to increase that. Like I said, the state aid coming in on average would give us about $165,000. Local receipts, if we bump that up to 85%, we get up to an additional $300,000. Health insurance, like I said, I'm at 16%. If we went down to 13, and after today's conversation, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that would be about a $72,000 savings. School choice in regional schools, I'm hoping I'm a little conservative on those. If those all panned out, we'd be looking at an additional 370 for the schools, a total of 686 total, but 370, if we split with the schools get 54% of new revenue, town gets 46, so that's where that 370 comes. So on the high side, we're looking at about 800,000. And again, after today, I think that 800,000 is probably on the very high end. I don't see us going much above that.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I have a question on the schools that you were just discussing. Jim, on this other exhibit, the expense, you have the community schools. You got two numbers in there for increase. One is a 1.8%, and then in a red, 3.9. So I was wondering if the 3.9 relates to what you had up there before,
Yes.
or what that relates
So
to?
overall, the $420,000 increase would be the smaller number, which was what?
1.8.
1.8%. If we took free cash out of last year's money, it's actually a 3.9% increase. So if free cash out, 480,000 free
Yeah.
cash we put in last year, if you take that out of last year's budget and we reduce last year's school department budget and just did apples for apples operating budget without free cash, it would be close to a 4% increase. When you bring in 480,000 free cash, it drops that down to 1.9% increase.
So what, let me see if I have this. So that means if we do the same in free cash this year as we did last year for the school, then it would be about a 4% increase.
Yeah, so if we put 480,000 free cash in there, it should be close to a 4% increase.
Okay.
some recommendations going forward. And after I met with Chris Vitale last week, and this is very preliminary, he just looked at the budget, for now while I was there, so it's all fresh to him, but he had mentioned we have the engineer's position in the highway department. Maybe putting that salary into the select board's budget salary line item, give the select board some flexibility as to how to use that, whether it's for a part-time engineer, whether it's for a communications, IT person, it would give you a little bit more flexibility. Whether, it could be a media consultant, communications. It's not in there right now. Right now, it's still in the highway department budget. Firefighter position, we did add one position. And again, they changed their revenue. They're bringing in roughly $150,000 to $180,000 a year that was not in there 2 years ago. They're following up on some of their ambulance billing, so they're justifying that extra position based on the new revenue that they're bringing in. It also goes back to a plan that I think they had years ago before I started, where they wanted to get up to, I think, a 6-person shift for each shift. And this brings them, I think, within one shift of getting that 6-person for each shift. The Board of Health, the clerk, they made a fairly convincing argument the other night with the Finance Board that they're looking for a part-time clerk. They do have their grant, which they may be able to use some of that grant funding for some of this clerk, or for some of these duties that this part-time clerk would have, but I think long-term, they're going to be looking for a part-time clerk. If revenues change coming in, that might be something the board wants to look at. And then I had mentioned free cash operating budget for that safety training. I took it out of the operating budget, and I think it would be a good warrant article to put on for use of free cash.
Madam Chair, can I have a question? The first one where it's the engineer position, it says move the salary line item to the select board budget. If we did move that to the select board budget, do we have the ability to move it elsewhere if we brought on a media communications and let's say that was only a $50,000 expense? Can we use that other elsewhere? Can that be moved elsewhere?
Until February 10.
That's it?
On February 10 is when we have to put our recommended
Okay.
budget to the FinCom.
Okay.
So we would have to designate where we think it should go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but that position, wasn't that determined in town meeting?
No, the budget was set for that position in town meeting.
Okay. That's all my question.
And then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Once it's in the budget, whether it's highway or select board, in order to move that, if you wanted to move it to a different department, or something, you would need town meeting approval, obviously, to do that.
Okay.
Right. So this is what I'm saying, we'd have to budget, we can budget for it now, we can move around in the budget, but once we send it off to FinCom, then we can't
Okay.
do anything.
And-
But can you just remind us how much that was? Is that
120,000.
120,000.
We had just over 120,000 in this year's budget, and I budgeted 120 for next year. We had the 120 plus 3%.
Just one more question on that safety training. I think in today's environment, it's probably going to be paramount that we get some sort of training. And this is maybe a specific outside of your scope, but of that 25K, is that just training at one particular school, or is that all 3 schools where they do the training?
It's a good question, I don't know. I believe it's one school.
Okay, all right. I think that's obviously something that we'd want to do in town meeting and want to do one way or the other and find a way to fund that, but I appreciate
Yeah, I don't think you've broken out the free cash recommendations here, but I think that's actually a very good use of free cash, that training. So like my preference would be to take the 120,000 from the engineer department and then move like, I don't know, like maybe 45,000 for a media person.
I'm okay.
I don't know how much, I don't know if we've done comps or anything for that. My preference would be to move it to a media person and some money for IT, like, I don't know, part-time or some professional services or something like that for IT, and then probably this Board of Health clerk. That would be my thought.
I'm okay with all 3 of those, and I think all 3 are probably pretty important along the list of things that are needed. And I don't know if that part-time media person, obviously, it's probably asking too much, be possibly the PIO, if there was.
Well, we need
right,
somebody,
yeah,
right?
A media that would oversee the website and be able to also interact. I don't know.
Because you wouldn't want them responsible for like you want them to be the distribution of the information, not responsible for the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
information, right? So that there's a single point of contact. Like, I think this Code Red thing sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be good if there was a central point person that this person could then share on socials or broadcast or whatever. But we probably need to come up with a job description for the job. I don't know, I have a hard time with the engineer position now. We had a very difficult time trying to find a candidate in the first place, and I think some of our engineering projects are winding down. But that might change in the future too. So, I mean, so one of the things you've said in the options here is to set aside for professional services to be used for engineering type work, right?
Yes.
All right, so I guess we need to give a little more discussion on what to do with that.
I think ultimately, since he's going to live with it, we probably look to see the recommendations of the new town administrator.
Yeah, agreed. What else you got, Jim?
That's pretty much it. We've been through this budget unknowns. We're still looking at state aid, state assessments, health insurance, and diamond assessments. Those are the big ones. By the end of January, you will have a very good idea of the state aid, Chapter 70, and state assessments. We should have a pretty good sense of what the health insurance will be by the end of January. And diamond assessment, probably February, late February.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Is this in our presentation in our package?
It is in, yes, it's under, it's under a
It's in the
different
main
file. It's-
presentation
Oh.
file. It's
Yeah.
in the presentation.
I didn't see it in there, but anyway, if
It's
it's in there,
the
I'll
one
find
that's
it.
the main presentation that he's been doing.
Yeah, yeah, all right.
All right, anything else you want to show us on this?
No, that's pretty much it. I do have there's another, I can pull it up if you want. It just has the individual departments with the percentage increase for each department. Mr. Brewer was looking at that before.
Did anybody have, so we got that information, right? Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
I was paying attention to something else. What was the question?
On the detail budget. So he wasn't going to pull up the detail budget, but if you have questions or comments on the detail budget.
The other one I had was the one about the schools, the percentages.
I will get those up on the website tomorrow.
Okay, the draft.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get the draft up on
That's
the
great.
website.
All right, anything else on the budget? You will not be sorry to be missing out on the budget 2 weeks from now, will you?
It's like it never ends, you know?
Maybe we'll call you if, you know, how you're doing.
We'll still see you at town meetings. You're still a
Tell you what we're
resident.
working on.
We go in disguise.
All right, thank you. So next item we have is town administrator report.
Yes, I passed out with the town administrator report is the piping plover summary from Cherry and Webb Beach. And also, I think they look at East Beach as well, a portion of East Beach, not so much where the town beach is, but further south, almost down near Gooseberry. But in general, you know, they had a number of nests. I think they had 8 nests this year, which is probably above average. They had 3 successful broads hatching, but unfortunately, none of the chicks fledged. They believe predators appear to be the primary threat to the success. And it goes up and down. If you look at the statistics, look at the report, each year is a little bit different. So we will have to consult with, we'll hire a new consultant or a consultant next year. There are some other companies that do this. It might be, now that we're over $10,000, we're required to get quotes, or at least solicit quotes from 3 different vendors. So we will be doing that as well. The Route 177 roundabout, there was some discussion at the last meeting. We had a resident here. We did check with Mass DOT. They are working on the response. They're just getting it approved. They should be out in the next week or so. To that neighbor, I will get copies to the board as well. The design is near completion, though. It's been going on for 5-6 years now, I think, the design. The state does have $4.7 million allocated for the construction, and that's scheduled to begin in '27.
So, Jim, they do have the money, and they're not waiting on anything to begin that construction? it's fully funded at 4.7 million? or-
It's in the TIP, so the Transportation Improvement Program is a regional plan developed by the state, Mass DOT, and the Southeastern Regional Planning Agency, and it's scheduled in the TIP. It can get bounced back a year.
Okay.
You know, some things change, like a bid, they'll go off a bid this year, and the bids might come in higher, and they have to shuffle projects around. It's in line to be funded right now for 27 and
For fiscal year 27 or?
fiscal year 27.
So that construction would start what, like July of 2027?
It's a slow process with Mass DOT. I would say probably late 27, it could be even 28 before
28,
before
okay.
it starts. And I've seen these projects get bounced back a year.
I don't think anyone would be too disappointed with that.
I can agree with that.
I've met with Chris Vitale a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. I know he's been actively attending a number of community events. He's been meeting with the Select Board. His official start date would be December 29th. And then Gifford Road and 177, just last week, we did get the Mass DOT highway access permit for that overhead signal, so Power Engineering will work on a bid package to get that out to bid. Right now, we need to expend the money by the end of June, which we will not be able to do. Just the lead time on these mast arms, they're saying could be 3 to 6 months. So we will request, or there's a note there to request an extension of those funds. We usually get them extended, but there is a process that has to be done to do that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, so that mast arm, it's just a blinking light?
Just a blinking light.
Did they end up adding the extra duct and stuff like that in case they wanted to upgrade it, or?
You know, you asked me that, and I never followed through with that, but I will check with Power tomorrow. Actually, I think I did follow through on that, and they said it was there, but I'll double check. That was a while ago.
Would've been a year ago.
That's all I have.
Thank you. We have the minutes for December 1.
Motion to approve the December 1 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Report on the bill warrant.
Within the package, $2.1 million, which is a fairly normal number. It does add up after a while, but still. I didn't find anything there that was out of line, so I approve this, and I'm good to go for the next one, which is the day before Christmas. We're working half a day on that day before Christmas?
Town Hall is open, my last day is Tuesday. Town Hall is open till 11:30.
Okay,
Christmas
so
Eve.
that affects, I got to get in and sign the warrants, which is not a problem, as long as I know when I got to do it.
There you go. All right, liaison committee reports and suggestion for future agenda. Jake,
We had the Climate Resiliency Committee meeting.
climate resilience.
It was an eventful meeting, and we'll be moving forward with the recommendations on that. I think there's just a IOC meeting this week as well. That's it.
All right, thank you, Manny.
I'm just trying to get back into it right now, so.
So in addition to the climate resilience meeting, I had a cable advisory meeting. I took a number of notes here. That was my first time attending that meeting, and so we did appoint the camera operator. I think they're doing a really good job partnering with the school department and working to get the high school kids trained and up in that. That's pretty good. One of the things that we asked them for is some metrics. So that they can get some metrics from the like the views, like how many meetings have they been recording, how many views have they been getting, what kind of engagement are they getting on the videos and things like that. So we've asked for a little bit more quantifiable metrics, because I think they are recording a lot more than people think. And so we want to make sure that we get visibility to that. There was some discussion about whether they need more equipment. So they have some minor equipment needs that they'll use from the cable advisory, I guess an enterprise fund. But we did talk about meeting rooms, and maybe this is something we'll work with the new staff at the select board office or maybe the town clerk's office to arrange like a meeting room schedule. I guess there's not a lot. I guess the town clerk does some juggling around when people get meeting rooms, but maybe like some kind of reservation process for the meeting room so people know who's going to be in the rooms when. It's not a huge problem, but it seems like It seems like very simple to do with a Google Calendar, so. So some more metrics there and just some minor spend there, and, yeah, that was pretty much all I had from cable.
Okay, I already talked about, as Craig did, the Council on Aging Friends at Rachel's. Jake and I attended a Barrier Beach
Oh, I forgot about
Planning
that.
Committee.
Thank you. I forgot.
And that was part of the hazard plan. I didn't have any questions on it because it was pretty clear. So that's something that's in process, and we were there just for input. And Jake answered most of the questions.
Thanks for reminding me, I was there.
So it was good, and I don't know if we have to go to that again. It's quite interesting, actually. So I have other meetings coming up, like CIPC is rolling right along, and we'll have some recommendations shortly. Landing Commission meets tomorrow. I go there as your liaison, and haven't seen the agenda yet, but that's about it.
Thank you. Greg?
You heard the report of the Long-Term Building Committee at our last meeting, but I have two meetings coming up this week. I have the opioid settlement advisory committee meeting tomorrow night at 6 PM. And then on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we have a meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Do you know if the, from the opioid committee, I know there's been some kind of administrative questions, like who's going to do the administration of the funds, but do you know if the Board of Health part-time clerk, if they were envisioning that part of their responsibilities?
I
Maybe
don't.
Can you maybe check?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
And that's also something that came up in my conversations with Chris.
Okay, good. All right, do we have any comments and statements from the public?
No.
We don't have a public.
There is no public.
We don't have public. I forgot to announce at the beginning of the meeting, our next meeting is not in 2 weeks. Our next meeting is in 3 weeks. So our next meeting, which, can you believe it's 3 weeks? But on January 5th is the next meeting.
Okay.
Do we still need this executive session, right?
We do.
So we're going to go into this executive session, but we're only going to come back out to adjourn. We will not conduct business after the executive session. So I will to entertain a moment to recess the regular meeting to go into executive session pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, where the chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect to consider the request from Police Chief Christopher Dunn for injury on duty benefits for a police officer. Do we have a motion?
Richard Brewer motions that we go into executive session for the reasons stated.
Second.
All in
Craig
favor?
Dutra.
Hi, Jacob Wigan.
I, Manuel Soers.
Aye, Shauna Tees.
Hi, Richard Brewer.
Hi, Craig Dutra.
All right, so we are in executive session. Thank you.